Hello, my name's Tom Simcock. I'm here to talk about tenants' priorities for reforming the private rented sector. And I'd just like to say thank you to Cash for inviting me to speak at this Scottish Housing Policy Conference. And this presentation is about presenting some emerging findings from a project that's a collaboration between Edge Hill University and colleagues from across Cash, a project that's funded by the Joseph Rowntree Foundation in partnership with the Scottish Government, looking at what do lower income tenants in Scotland's private rented sector want to see from a new rented sector strategy. I think the first place to start is to look at the who, the demand side characteristics of the private rented sector, the tenants. And as we know, that the private rented sector has grown substantially over the last 20 years. But what we're seeing is the importance of the sector across the life course and as a long-term housing provider. The economic and social context is leading to families and households to depend on the sector for longer. And it's becoming important for a variety of different types of households, such as low-income households, families with children, and older people. And as Robin Rhodes identified, there are a wide range of different submarkets across the private rented sectors. But I think there are two key main points here. Firstly, it is not a transient short-term tenure for everyone. There is the reliance for long-term home. But as McKee and others argue in their research, the experiences are shared across all these different submarkets, but more acutely experienced by those with limited social, economic and cultural capital. And that is why it's so important for this project that we're focusing on low-income renters, where those with that limited economic capital, who might acutely experience some challenges in the private rented sector, are able to provide their voice on their experiences directly to policymakers in helping to develop these policy proposals going forward. So for our research project, which is, as I mentioned, funded by the JRF in partnership with the Scottish Government, we have four key aims. And this is to identify the challenges faced by low-income renters in Scotland and their areas for priorities and areas for change, but also to explore the challenges and experiences faced by different equalities groups and their priorities for change. We also want to build the knowledge, capacity and confidence of renters to enable them to represent themselves to policymakers in the co-production element. And sort of the main sort of key aim for us is to bring renters and policymakers together to co-produce policy recommendations to address the challenges and areas for change identified. For our project, we're employing a mixed method study over two phases. The first phase is focusing on developing an understanding of the key challenges, and this is what I'm really focusing on today. And our second phase, which is just really starting, is a much more deeper dive into the challenges for different groups and the co-production of workable solutions to these challenges. In phase one, we've undertaken an evidence review of the existing literature on the experiences of low-income renters. This includes 106 articles and reports that we've reviewed, encompassing approximately 2,060 low-income renters' voices. We've also started an initial qualitative inquiry, which includes 2 focus groups and 2 semi-structured interviews with renters, and also a focus group with stakeholders. We've also conducted a bespoke survey of all renters in Scotland to explore the challenges they face and their priorities for change. We designed the survey, and YouGov undertook the fieldwork online in November last year. We had a total sample size of just over 1,000 renters, and the analysis was undertaken by the project team. And we've identified 9 sort of emergent themes of challenges and experiences in the private rented sector in Scotland, from across the literature review through the survey and through our initial qualitative inquiry. And these are likely to evolve and adapt as we continue collecting data. And what I'd like to do today is just focus on 3 key sort of emergent themes. Firstly, accessing the private rented sector, then have a look at affordability issues, and then property conditions and repairs. And we've got a lot of data, so I can't go into everything, but there will be more available in due course as well. So let's have a look at the first main sort of key challenge for private renters in Scotland, and that is around accessing the private rented sector. One of the key areas that we found was around discriminatory practices. This includes legalised practices across the UK in terms of right to rent, which isn't applicable in Scotland, but also other forms of discriminatory practices such as no DSS. And then there's also ones around landlord discretion as well, in terms of sort of when people, due to the sort of competition for properties in terms of landlords choosing who they think would be the best renter in terms of affordability and income. And from our survey, we found that 7% of renters had told us they'd experienced landlords or letting agents that did not want to let to tenants on benefits. And when you dig down into renters that solely claim benefits, that actual figure in terms of proportion of that sample then increases. We also found in our qualitative research that participants reported mixed experiences when trying to access the sector. And some of these barriers included the price and affordability relative to the budget, but also the need for pre-tenancy checks, including sometimes having the need to have a guarantor, but also competition due to the high demand for properties relative to supply. Several participants talked about the importance of personal networks and connections in helping them find property. And this was especially important for Paul, who said that he didn't have strong English language skills or good understanding of the private market work. Working with people and getting to know people on Facebook and getting in touch with groups helped him to find somewhere safe for him to live. But there are also other challenges faced by renters when trying to access the sector. For instance, having a pet. Nearly 1 in 5 renters surveyed told us that they have pets and have difficulty finding a landlord or letting agent that would allow them to have the pet. But there are also issues faced by renters to access the private rent sector because of issues in accessing other tenures. 44% of renters told us that they rented privately because it was their only option. They couldn't access social sector, they couldn't access the their own occupier sector. And this is all wrapped up as well in terms of the issues around affordability. And as we know, affordability is a complex concept and requires attention to the evolution of household income, housing costs, as well as household expenditure. And the existing research shows that for low-income renters, all these terms are more problematic given the mix of insecure, low-paid employment, also the high level of rents, which isn't matched by rent support, such as LHA rates, and the insufficient income to cover basic needs once housing costs are paid. And often low-income households have no other choice but to accept low-quality housing conditions to prioritise rent over basic necessities. And this was articulated by renters too, as throughout both the survey and our qualitative research, that affordability and perceptions of value for money was a key challenge for renters. We found in our survey that 33% of renters were worried about being able to afford their rent in the future. And this was reinforced by qualitative data where participants told us around the difficulties in either being able to pay the rent and worrying about being able to pay their rent. And then this also affected their ability to feel settled in the property and being able to turn that property into a home. For those on the lowest incomes, they told us about the difference between their actual rent and what the universal credit would cover and how that was a real challenge. But others also reported the fluctuating and unpredictable incomes had a real influence and negative impact on their sort of mental health in terms of being able to afford their rent and worrying about affording their rent as well. And the final sort of key theme and challenge that's sort of emerging through this research is around property conditions and repairs. It's well known that poor property conditions and issues of repairs are well established as an experience for private renters throughout the existing literature, from in England and Wales, of course in Australia, and other neoliberal private renter sectors. But in Scotland, we found from our survey that 1 in 4 renters surveyed told us that the landlord letting agent did not make repairs to the property when asked. And in our conversations, other renters expressed frustrations with the speed and quality of landlord's repairs, as well as a broader reluctance by the landlord to invest in the property. For example, to upgrade the decor or to make it more energy efficient. And some tenants respond by simply doing the repairs themselves and paying from their own pocket to improve the property. And this is for low-income renters who are having to sort of fix the issues that should be done by the landlord. For the next steps in our project, we are now going to be focusing on doing some more in-depth qualitative interviews with renters to listen to their experiences and identify challenges and emerging priorities for change. And following this, we're also going to be undertaking the Delphi co-production process, where we'll bring together cohorts of renters across 3 different workshops, bringing together cohorts of the renters, policymakers, stakeholders together to explore the issues of concern and then to develop and refine workable policy solutions. I think in terms of the emergent conclusions, our findings show a nuanced picture of the experience of private renters in Scotland. There are many renters who do have a positive experience, but there are renters who do not. And the findings of this and previous research highlight challenges in the PRS are experienced more acutely by those without the financial, social, legal capital, those in the lower income part of the sector. And there are a range of challenges identified, including affordability, property conditions and repairs, and access to the sector. And just talking about emerging priorities for change, and when we asked renters what they would like to see as priorities for change, firstly, affordability. Participants are keen to see fairer rents, with some expressing concern about value for money compared to the high proportion of income spent on rent. But renters are also keen to see more flexibility from landlords and greater understanding of tenant circumstances were to change unexpectedly. Then there's also repairs. Tenants were keen to see properties rented in good condition from the start, and some renters offered suggestions including greater regulation, having a rating system of property, and the ability for tenants to leave reviews for others to read. And from our survey, 35% of renters surveyed that increasing access to a greater supply of low-cost, high-quality houses for rent was the most important thing for the Scottish Government to focus on. So there's a lot to digest there, and I'm really excited to be able to take your questions in the live session as well. So, or please do drop me an email as well. Thank you.